Hello Google Analytics users, how are you doing today? In this chapter, let's take a look at the frequency and recency reports in Google Analytics. And you can find these reports if you go inside Audience and then Behavior, and then the second report over there is Frequency and Recency. Now, if you click on this option, you will find that a report loads over here. This report has two parts, that is, the first one is count of sessions and the second one is days since last session. The first report pertains to frequency and the second is for recency, right? Frequency means how frequently the user visits your website, and recency means how recently the visitor has visited your website, right? Sounds simple, but this report is pretty difficult to understand, the frequency part at least. And if you try on internet, you will not really find many good examples for this report, not many good explanations for this report. Google's own documentation has got some really good explanation, but here I'm going to try to simplify this for you. So, before even we start analyzing this data, we need to understand what this data means. And the main trick is to understand what is count of sessions. So let's try to understand what is count of sessions first, because it is not as simple as the number of sessions. So for now, I will move out of Google Analytics and take you to a small explanation of what this data means. So let's see what it is. Think of a park. This park has got a lot of trees. Some of them are really big in size, very tall, and some of them are tall in size, and the others are short in size, right? Now, if I were to plot the number of trees that are very tall, that are tall, and that are short in a graph or in a chart, you would find something like this. There are 5 trees which are very tall, there are 3 trees which are tall, and there are 10 trees which are short in size. Now, typically this kind of data plot is called as a histogram, and this is basically displaying the height of trees and their frequency in this park, right? So we can call this as a frequency distribution. So now that you know what a histogram is, let's move forward. Like the trees histogram that we plotted, if we were to plot a histogram which is related to count of sessions inside Google Analytics, you will find it something like this, right? And if we rotate it, you will think that, okay, this is what I saw probably in the frequency report. To an extent, you are right, but still we need to understand what is the meaning of this count of sessions. So let's take an example to understand that. Think of 4 months, July, August, September, and October, and think of a user A who has been visiting a website across all these 4 months, right? So for example, this user A visited the first time this website in July, okay? And he visited the website only once. And then in August, the user did not visit the website at all. Okay, so there is a big cross over there. And then in September, the user visited the second, the third, and the fourth time to this website, right? And then in October, the user A visited the fifth time to this website, right? And if I were to plot the frequency distribution of count of sessions, let me display how this will look like. Now, this is closely related to the period that you take in your Google Analytics report to understand this, right? So if you remember, there is a date range that we select in Google Analytics. So this report will be very closely related to that period you take in Google Analytics. Okay. So for example, Right now, let's assume that I have selected the period of July, right? So this means that the period is from July 1 of a certain year to July 31st of a certain year, right? Now, in this period, the user A visited only once to the website, right? And therefore, in the block of 1 that you see over here, this is the count of sessions. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 count of sessions over here displayed, right? So this user visited once, and therefore we mark that block with a 1 visit, right? This must be simple to understand, right? And similarly, if we check for August, we will not see any visits, and therefore we will not mark any block over here, right? Now the interesting part is what happens when we see September, right? In September, the user made 3 visits. So you would sometimes think that I will have a mark of 3, right? 3 counts on the third block, right? Over here. I would say that, okay, it should be 3 over here, right? A big block. But that doesn't happen. This is related to not the aggregate number of visits, but the counts of the visits, okay? So if the user visited the second time in this period, so there will be 1 mark in the second block over here, okay? And if the user visited the third time, you will see another mark over here, and the fourth time you will see another mark over here. So it's not related to the number of total visits, but it's related to the count, the particular count of that visit that the user made, okay? And if you were to see a period between September and October, right, you would find that the second, third, fourth, and fifth blocks are included, and all of them have a mark 1 over there, right? It makes sense. This is a very important thing to understand over here. It's the count of sessions, and it's not the aggregate number of visits. Aggregate number of sessions is not shown over here. It's the count of sessions, right? If there were multiple users in this website, which is generally the case, every website will have at least a few visitors coming to the website and not just one visitor. How would it look like? It would look something like this, right? There are so many visitors, including user A, user K, user M, user Z, and the count of sessions report starts to look something like this. Now, this is very similar to what we saw in Google Analytics, right? So you can see that a lot of visitors are there who have got their first visit in this period of September to October, and then there are a few less who have visited the second time in this period. You can see that, and then there is the third time and fourth time and so on, right? So it gradually keeps on decreasing. Now, if this makes sense, let's go back to the Google Analytics report, and now you will find that you are able to gain more from this report. We will shortly see how to analyze it and where are the pitfalls and all these things, but I hope you are able to grasp till now what is going on with this report, right? Let's go back to Google Analytics now. Now, in this frequency report, you will see that I have selected a period over here, and then I am able to see the report related to count of sessions over here, right? So for one count of sessions, you will see that there are 33,049 sessions that were created, right, over here. So definitely there were 33,049 new users in this period that we have selected, okay? And then in the count of sessions too, you will see that 5,901 sessions were created. This means that there were so many sessions who had their second visit to the website. Makes sense, right? And the same is true for the third count of session. There were 2,436 sessions created, which were basically the third visit of that user, okay? Right now I am considering one visit equal to one session, which may not be always true, but let's assume that fact and move forward, okay? So for the fourth visit, you will find that 1272 sessions were created, which were making their fourth visit to the website, right? Now, how do you use this report? This report can be used for understanding probably the performance of a promotion. Let's assume that you had started a promotion on a particular month and then you wanted to see if that promotion is getting us new visitors to the website or not. This is a good indicator for that. The more these new visitors are from the previous periods, basically, the better the promotion is running, probably, right? And let's say you were running an remarketing campaign on a certain period, and then you see that the count of sessions 2, 3, and all these are increasing. Okay, that could probably be a good indicator to say that the remarketing is working, right? But we are still not there yet. Let me put a question forward to you. Okay, now to do that, let's add a segment over here. The segment that we see right now is the all users segment. That means this report is showing the data for all the users that visited this website. But let's say I want to understand what is the data for the new users of this website, right? Let's go ahead and select new users over here. New users, let's select this and click on apply. Now you will see that this report has changed a lot. So for every count of sessions, you will see that all user and new user reports are provided separately. And as you would expect, in the count of sessions 1, the all users and the new users are the same, which means that all those people who are visiting for the first time to this website are new users. It's a no-brainer, right? And you would also find that for the subsequent count of sessions, the new users over here are 0. Even this makes sense because all the users have been accounted for over here itself, right? But let me bring a case to you over here. Now, let's consider a user B along with user A, right? And right now, we are looking at the month of September. Now, user B's journey is slightly different from user A. User B didn't start his journey to this website in July or August. User B started on September, and the first 3 sessions that user B created, which means the first visit, the second visit, and the third visit, all were there in the month of September. And then in October, user B made another 2 visits, that's the fourth and the fifth visit. Now, if we have selected September as our month of, looking at the data, you will find that user B's first session was created over here, right, in the month of September, the second and the third as well. Now here there is an interesting thing that we are seeing. User B is of course a new visitor in the month of September, and therefore he is accounted for in the first block, right? But it is also true that in that same month of September, user B is accounted for in the second block, in the third block as well. And if he had visited the fourth, he would have been accounted in the fourth block as well. So when we were seeing the frequency report just now, what we ignored was that I'm fine that all the new users have been put in the block 1, but there are a lot of users from these new users who are also present in the block 2 of the count of sessions 2 and in 3 and so on. Now, when we are looking at the frequency report in Google Analytics, it was fine that we had looked at the new users and we found that all the new users have been accounted for in the count of sessions 1. But won't it make more sense to find out all those users who have by themselves visited this website second, third, or fourth time, maybe, or even more? And these are probably the more important visitors to your website because they are continuously visiting your website in a relatively short duration, right? So, just like B, who visited the website 3 times, in this period, okay? But along with B, there are many other visitors who did not visit the website after the first time. So if I had to plan a remarketing, probably I would look at a different chunk of visitors in that period, right? I'll look for a chunk of visitors who have visited the website more than once. Therefore, they are more engaged to the website, right? Let's go back to the Google Analytics report and see the report in this new light once again. Now, we had already selected a new users segment over here, right? For which we had this data. Let's select one more segment. I will explain this segment to you because I have created it myself. It's a custom segment. Let's click on plus. And I had created a segment over here with the name users with the first session in this period. Let's select this. And let me tell you what this session is. This session is of all the users for whom the current period mandatorily had the first session. Therefore, if a user made a visit to this website for the first time in a certain period and also made subsequent visits to the website, this segment will be able to find that for you. Let me explain how this will work. Now, let's focus on count of sessions 1. All users and new users, we already understand how this comes. Now, let's look at this report more closely to understand better, right? And we will take a look at this count of sessions 1 block. We have got all the 3 segments displaying all users, new users, users with 1 session in this period. Now you will see that the numbers are same over here, obviously because all users with 1 sessions are equal to all the new users. That means the new users who made first visit to the website in this period, and it's also equal to the users who have made their first visit in this period, right? From the count of sessions 2, things get interesting. In this block, you will find that all users are 5901, new users are 0 because we are talking about users who had their second session in this period, right? So far so good. But if you see the user with first session in this period, they are 4713. And I think you are now realizing what's happening over here, right? This says that all those users who had their first session in this period as well as the second session in this period, right? We are sure that the second session happened in this period because they are showing up in this block, right? And we have also filtered it by this segment which says they had their first session in this period, which means that if I subtract 4713 from 5901, all these users did not have their first session in this period, okay, for sure, okay. But these 4713 users had their first session in this period and also had their second session in this period. It is also true for the count of sessions 3. All these users with the first session in this period which says 1611, all these users are users who had their first session in this period, who had their third session in this period. And if you extend the logic, you can also say that these users definitely had their second sessions in this period. And you can check count of sessions after count of sessions, you will find exactly the same thing happening, okay. Now why this is better to the previous way of looking at this data? Because now you know that who are the more valuable users for my website. For example, these 4713 users visited twice in this period. They are better than all those users who visited just once. And even more valuable are the users who visited some more times, right? 1611 visitors visited 3 times and 706 visitors visited 4 times. So why not I focus on this group for my remarketing or for my promotions, right? So this is how you analyze this report, and you can use this report for multiple purposes. For example, tracking your promotions, tracking your remarketing campaigns, and tracking how you are faring on new visitors versus repeat visitors. So if I see the gap between the first and the second increasing, the second and the third increasing by a lot, okay, and if I see that the first count of session has got a lot of users but not the second and third, which means that there is a lot of visits from new visitor but they are not coming back to the website, right? So this is how you analyze this data. Next, let's go to the page views. Page views are all the cumulative number of pages viewed by the users or the sessions that fall in this count of session 1 over here, right? And then similarly, for all those users who had count of session 2, the page view is showing up over here, okay? And similarly, we'll find for count of session 3 and then 4 and so on. So this part is very easy to understand. All you can do over here is that you can find out which block of users are viewing more pages per session. That will also tell you that how things are working out for that particular group of users. Okay. Now let's move to the recency report, which is the days since last session. Let's click on this and you will find that, let's remove these segments first. We don't need them anymore. And you will find that it's a similar kind of histogram showing up over here. The only difference being in the first column. Okay. And sometimes if you're not sure about what these dimensions mean, or sometimes some metrics, right, you can always hover over this question mark and it will tell you the definition. For example, over here, days since last session is defined as the number of days between the close of one session and the opening of another, right? So this is pretty simple to understand. There are 40,144 sessions which were created once and the users probably didn't visit the website after that. Okay. There were 1,127 sessions created in this period whose last visit was one day before. Okay. And then you will find there are 612 such sessions who visited the website 2 days before, right? And so on. You get the idea. And again, you have also got the page views over here to see whether there are enough pages being viewed by such users or not. Okay. For example, these 40,144 sessions have seen a cumulative of 167,000 and some more pages, right? So you could divide these two to find out how many pages were viewed by users per session. If you enjoyed this video and you are a general enthusiast of Google Analytics or you like exploring Google Analytics, please subscribe to this channel, please like this video, and there is a course that I run on Google Analytics. You will find the details in the description. You may as well check it out. There are many more such videos in this course. There are many more such lessons, and I talk about Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, and Google Data Studio in very extensive topics in this course. It's a 17-hour course that can help you learn a lot about Google Analytics. So with that, let me close this video and thank you for watching it.